All right, so we are live with this week's version of the Living in Tacoma, Washington podcast, or as I'm now calling it, the Titus Robertson Report.
Hey, I
Uh,
like that name.
I got my wonderful business partner, Chris Titus, with me today. It'll be cool to be able to say Titus Robertson Report and then already have queued up some of like the old timey news station music that just dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, have like
Yeah.
TRG 253, like an old news station.
Hey, I'm sure that you could probably plug that into like AI or something and like just totally create it just by giving it a couple of prompts, right?
Chat GPT can do anything for anybody apparently these days.
That's right.
Only make us prettier.
Little touch up.
Right? Exactly. Just like you can take these, maybe like Botox, I guess, is the same thing as ChatGPT. Apparently,
Hey, man, I think we know a guy for that, right?
we do. Shout out to my boy Tim at Honeyglow Health in Bonnie Lake. If you need some face stuff, I don't know, Botox fillers. I don't want to say other things. I don't know what the hell he actually does. I just know he does like a few of those things, right?
I heard the guy works magic, so that came from the horse's mouth. So let me
That's
just tell you
true.
that.
He
Yeah.
does work magic for sure.
Mhm.
All right, so today, folks, we're here today. We're going to be talking about a new report that just came out. This show this week is going to be pretty dialed as far as talking about real estate, and we are talking about something that's kind of rocked my world as I've looked into it a little bit more. But there's a new report that has came out from Redfin, and Redfin was looking at data between, just traditional sales data and luxury home data, and been really surprised. But luxury homes, there's been a giant flood of inventory of homes being sold in the luxury market and also hitting the market when we're not even in that, spring season yet, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of higher end market stuff really kind of break loose over the last year or so. It was really interesting during the pandemic, right? Because we saw a lot of people hunker down, right? Like, so people don't want to sell their home, they don't know what the market's going to do. Oh my gosh, is it going to crash? Oh my gosh, it's actually spiking. Like, what the heck do we do? Is the luxury market going to be affected? And really, what we saw is people just kind of pull back because they didn't want to put their home on the market and then take a bath if they had to sell it and it didn't sell for what they wanted, especially in that higher end market.
Right. So when we're sitting here with the group and we're, talking on the podcast about luxury real estate, like what does that really mean to you? Like, is it a price point? Is it a neighborhood? Like, what do you
It
think?
really is kind of a few different things. So, like when we're defining luxury real estate is really property with spaciousness, premium location, top quality construction materials, state of the art technology, high end finishes, amenities, things like swimming pools, home theaters, fitness center, like even bowling alleys and houses. And a lot of these homes are in some of the most exclusive areas and locations in the country. But when we're talking price point specifically, what does define a luxury home? And the way that Redfin described it, and the way that most markets within the country define what a luxury home is compared to what other regular real estate is really the top 5% of homes selling as far as price point in any given area.
So let me ask you this. If you were to buy a house, now whether it's the top 5% of Pittsburgh, Kansas, out here in Washington, or maybe you move down to, I don't know, New Mexico, you can you're buying a house in that crazy range because you have that much money and no one can tell you no. What's the one feature you would put in the house?
Oh man, great question. For me, I'm going to kind of go left field. I'm going to say I would probably put something crazy like a gun range in the house. Like if money wasn't a question and I could put anything in a house, I'd probably go, something crazy, go down into the bunker and put a gun range in the bottom of the house. Is that weird?
No, I mean, I don't know that it really counts as far as like, luxury. I don't know if a gun range counts as luxury, but I mean, you can have anything you want in it.
Well, I
I
mean, when you think in luxury, you're thinking of unique features that aren't
sure.
in any typical home. Like, not every typical home has a swimming pool or a premium location or top quality construction materials. So, I mean, when you're thinking luxury, it's like, okay, what is something very specific and unique that's expensive to put into a home? Would somebody want?
I think I'm going with like the full scale basketball court. Like, not that I'm good at basketball, I'm definitely not, but like Finley and I love, me and my kid love playing basketball and football together. And like the basketball court is super badass. And we could have like a Robertson Center logo. And it's also very low maintenance. Like, you don't got to do a lot. And then like just a badass sound system in there and have gangster rap playing like 24/7. So,
I could see that. You guys are really into sports. Finn, I mean, that dude never stops. So, I could definitely see an indoor sport court with the Robertson family emblem right in the middle of that thing. That would be pretty sick. I'd say, 1A, 1B for me, probably swimming pool, just because we live in Washington and it's just not something that's typically in a house. You'll see some in some of the higher end homes, or heated pool on the outside. I'd probably go indoor pool too.
right. Yeah. It has to be indoor for sure.
Yeah.
That's So for reference, that top 5% down here in Pierce County is about 850 grand. Moving up into King, it's going to be about 2.1. And of course, that really depends on where you're at. And 850, even, if you're in South Tacoma, 850 is a whole lot different on, North End. And even in King County, 2.1 in, center Seattle is a lot different than it is in Bellevue. So I think even though it's a balance, like, man, that spread is pretty dang big. But hey, congrats to anyone who bought a house like in the last year, because you probably paid about 850. So technically you live in luxury real estate. Like, congrats.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, prices only continue to go higher too, right? So these are numbers that are only going to continue to tick up and up and up and up. But the price difference that we're talking about, right? 2.1 million is considered the top, 5 to 10% of real estate and above, right? In King County, that's based on median prices. So in 850 in Pierce County, that's why we have such a large variance of home prices, and why we see a lot of people leaving King County coming down to Pierce County where we typically operate, is because there's just a lot more affordability. You can get more home for your money. And when we're talking about what can I get for 850 in Pierce County compared to what I can get for 850 in King County, man, that's a stark difference. I mean, you're talking mid-range house for 850, almost starting point in some neighborhoods for 850. Whereas, Pierce County, on the flip side, you can come down here and get a McMansion, for 850, or maybe even something with a view of the water or an amazing view of the mountain with a good amount of land. So stark differences in the values that we're seeing for just houses in general and the luxury markets in both counties.
I think what's crazy is seeing that 850 price point for Pierce County, like knowing that the West Coast is so much more expensive than the majority of the country, is seeing that 850 price point when like the average now luxury home in America is $1.17 million. Like, it's kind of weird almost to see Pierce County's luxury market start at a lower point than the national average, because as like your national average for a house is like what, 340. And up here it's considerably more. That 1.17 is a pretty big jump too. Like, that went up like 8.8% in 1 year. So we're seeing the luxury market price points really kind of just skyrocket, and we're seeing the inventory skyrocket. And like, I don't know, man. Like, I didn't expect this scenario. Like, when I was looking back at last year, thinking there was going to be a slower economy. I didn't see luxury real estate really booming. Obviously the economy really didn't slow down the way that, I had initially thought, but I would have thought that, like, with a slowing market, I would have expected, these luxury home prices to pull back. Like, that would have been my guess.
Yeah, I mean, conventional thinking would send you in that direction, but when we're talking about luxury listings, we're talking about most typical times the wealthy, right? The ultra wealthy, the people that have absolutely, stacks of cash or equity in their properties that they own right now, or they own businesses. And when you're talking about ultra luxury real estate, like, most people are buying cash.
Yeah.
That's a huge makeup of that market. And when you're buying cash, the high interest rates that we've had tick up over the last year and a half, 2 years, they don't mean anything to somebody buying cash. What do they care? I don't. It means nothing to anybody that's paying cash to have a 7-8% interest rate, because they're not paying interest on cash. It's just cash, so they can go and spend it.
Now, even though rates, let's say, are 7%, with the return that people get in the market every year, as far as like investing, are you surprised to see people pulling cash to buy luxury properties instead of keeping it in the market?
Not as much. You would think so, right? Because you want to be diversified, you want to stay in a sound investment. But actually, luxury real estate is one of the strongest real estate classes to be invested in, because typically it doesn't take a hit like, the regular or median price level real estate. When we have dips and fluctuations in the market, it typically stays pretty steady. So honestly, I'm not really surprised to see people pull money out of other investments and put it into luxury real estate, because it is actually historically been a pretty sound investment that stays pretty stable.
Yeah, if we were looking at, I say I've got a slide here to show you. So this shows kind of luxury prices rising at the pace, and obviously, we had the pandemic here, where that has a little bit of a change, where you see this uptick from 21 and 22. But if you look at it versus traditional, home prices, like, it took a little bit of a dip, but then as things came back, it got strong, and now it's already dipping back up quite a bit stronger than non-luxury. In fact, if you look at this year over year, like, your traditional home shows about a 4.6% compared to that 8.8. So you're seeing almost a double in value in year over year rates there.
Yeah.
So
and again, that really comes down to cash. The interest rate rise over the past 2 years that we saw, post pandemic, going from 2-3%, doubling all the way up, more than doubling, getting up into the 7s and 8s. That doesn't affect luxury real estate. People with cash, it doesn't matter what the rates are. So that's why you see the increase in those prices in the percentages that you do, but the lag in non-luxury real estate.
Yeah, so you're saying that we're seeing we're seeing double the increase in values and prices rising, because essentially our buyers that are buying fine homes and luxury real estate are kind of immune from having to worry about traditional financing and what the money market is doing. Their hands aren't tied necessarily as much.
Yeah, it's one of the factors for sure. And, the other factors too are, quite frankly, they can just afford it. If they do have to take out a jumbo mortgage, or if they are able to, finance those higher rates at those higher prices, they can just afford it. So that's part of the reason too.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the listing increase, because this is something that we talked about this at lunch today. The listing increase has been pretty substantial, like the amount of homes that are hitting the market. So even though they're getting higher prices, we're seeing more homes hit the market. So there's been an increase of 19.7% of new listings hit the market that are luxury, and negative 3.3 of non-luxury homes hit the market. So this is what I want to talk about. We kind of had been talking about the maybe the bottom is behind us. There is more opportunity now because there's all these new listings. But with this new data coming out, it honestly is a little concerning to me because we're seeing a gigantic flux of that new inventory is apparently all luxury real estate, which is great for our high-end clients that can afford it. But for our traditional family that's just, looking for a house and they're hearing, hey, there's a lot of inventory coming to market. I mean, are you thinking the same way I am? Like maybe they're not going to have those extra options.
Well, it's disproportionate. Like you said, yeah, okay. Overall, we have an increase in inventory, but if a large percentage of that is luxury real estate, then the non-luxury buyers, they're still in a pinched market. They're still in a seller's market, and there really isn't a rise in inventory. Plus, with the new listings coming to market being lower percentages or losing percentages in that non-luxury market, it just compounds it and makes it even worse. So we're still seeing it's definitely a mix, but the compound effect of these luxury listings increasing and us including that in the overall inventory numbers and saying, yeah, there's more inventory, but if a large percentage of that is luxury, it's still very difficult for the average home buyer in the United States right now and in our area for sure.
So I'm an average home buyer. I'm buying a traditional $600,000 house in the Tacoma market. I'm seeing this big increase in inventory. The spring market's right around the corner. And now, we're dropping this bomb on you that says, hey, guess what? There's really not inventory coming up. In fact, there's less than there was last year, which was a disaster with rates at 8%. So, Chris, what do I do?
Well, I mean, you got to pull up your bootstraps. First thing you got to do is you got to call us, right? Because we have our finger on the market on exactly what's going on. We have connections with other brokers in the area and know, when some things are going to be coming on the market before they even hit the market, things like that. Those are really your first steps, but you have to have a strategy. You got to know exactly what you're looking for. We have to have, you want to have your financing in order. If you have equity or you're selling a home or things like that, like let's have a solid plan for that. Make sure that that's situated so that you're not walking in making offers with a contingency. It's much better to have a pending home on the market and then go out and make offers before you're trying to get a contingent offer accepted. So we have to think of the hierarchy of what's the seller's mindset? What are they going to want to accept when they're considering your offer to purchase? Now, we've got an interesting kind of place in the market right now. We are coming out of the rising interest rate market, kind of coming into a leveling off. Well, the Fed has said, okay, we're going to continue to drop things down as long as inflation kind of stabilizes, right? But we haven't seen that massive dip down to 6% or into the high fives yet. When we get to that point, I feel like we're going to have a frenzy of people rushing back to the market, everybody that's kind of stayed out of it for a little while. So even though you're in this 600-ish range right now, diminishing inventory because a lot of it's luxury. If you have a solid plan, you have great representation, you put a plan in place, and you do all the right things, there is opportunity out there for you right now before things get too crazy going into the end of 24 into 25.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you were talking, I was just kind of thinking like one of the biggest concerns I would have is if you're thinking about buying a house, we all as adults kind of we understand basic supply and demand.
Yeah.
And so we're getting all these reports of, hey, there's a huge flux in inventory. As a buyer, I'm just like, oh, well, thank God. Like I'm not going to have to bid over. I might be able to get 10,000 under, under cost. I might be able to get 2.5% for, a 2-1 buy down. The reality is like, y'all are not going to probably get that this spring. Like it's probably not going to, like you can't make October offers in April this year because I don't think the inventory will be there.
I mean, we see that every year, right? Like people are, they kind of hunker down during the wintertime. The really serious buyers buy, honestly, they do buy in December. I mean, we
Yep.
closed several transactions
Oh,
in December
best time.
because it's the best time of year to be a buyer because there's less people buying, which means less competition. Less competition means lower price, which means you don't have 5 or 10 or 15 people driving the price up on you. But that's what we're going to have as you come back into the spring market. Yeah, you do have that increase in inventory because there's just more houses for sale, but you have more buyers because we have pent up demand coming to the market in springtime. So yeah, early in winter, December into January and then through February coming into early spring, it really is when you see a lot of opportunity for people to get in, like you were talking about, getting those credits, maybe getting $10,000 off the list price. We can negotiate repairs on inspections, all of those kinds of things. That is when you're going to have your best ability to do that, is when the competition is not as severe.
Right. And I think in the luxury market, even though we are having a lot of people or a lot more stuff come into place, I still think there is scarcity in the luxury home inventory. While it is up, I think there's some scarcity there, even though there's been that year over surge. And I think that's kind of created that, I guess, that competition really amongst our like more affluent buyers. Even though there's that limited supply, even some increased listings, I think you can really kind of look at that as why we're seeing those price increases coming up. Like, do you have a different take on that?
I mean, you can look at both sides of the coin, right? There's a few reasons why new luxury listings have soared over the last year or so, coming into the end of 23. High end sellers put their homes on the market to cash out while the prices are high. The prices are high right now, so that's one of the reasons. Mortgage rates, locked in effect, doesn't hold back affluent buyers as much as middle income buyers. That's another reason. New listings have a lot of room to grow as they're sitting on the lowest level in a decade at the end of 22. So there's several reasons why we're seeing that increase. But to your point, with the scarcity, there's just been a lack of inventory previously. And if you're having more buyers out there because they have the cash to do it, you want something to choose from. So when these ones hit the market and they're perfect and they're everything that people have been wanting, and they haven't seen the influx in the last few years, they're just being sold faster. So those affluent buyers that have the cash or the means to buy the more expensive homes in the luxury market, they're snapping them up very quickly when the right ones come up at the right prices.
So with the obvious increase in luxury listings coming to the market, if you're owning, let's say, a $2 million house right now, are you putting your house on the market?
I mean, real estate happens at your speed, right? Like, that's what I say. Real estate happens during life events. So for me, it's like, okay, do I have to sell my home? That's the first question. Do I have a life event? Are we moving out of state? Are we selling the business? Are we moving? Are the kids out of school? Are we upsizing? Are we downsizing? Like, that's the first question, always. The second question is, okay, if I own a $2 million home, would I sell it right now? I absolutely would. I absolutely would consider selling a more expensive home right now, because the data shows that those homes are selling, and they're selling for the prices that people are asking for them.
Yeah, and if you're getting, what's like 47% right now of all those deals are cash, like we talked about. That means if you have a luxury home right now and you can get it on the market and get it sold, you might be able to get it where there's no appraisal to be hung up on. We're going to look at the highest price home that sold like in our MLS in the last like year or whatever, and I guarantee you, like, looking at the increase over just a few years, that home sold in a manner where the bank did not have a say in the value of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that also gives you a very strong move, and I would love to see some data, like if Redfin or MBA or any of these guys, Atmos or any of them, I'd love to see what they're doing once they're selling the properties. Like, are they traditionally upsizing, downsizing, taking the money and just moving to cheaper areas. Like, it's a big surge to not really have any data in the market as to where these people are going when they're moving off of these, massive properties. So,
it's definitely interesting, right? The wealth growth in the United States is only continuing to grow, right? And, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, wherever you kind of fall on that spectrum, the wealth gap is widening. So the people that are selling these 5, 6, 7, $8 million houses in our areas, the Jeff Bezos of the world, right? Like we don't see a lot of $40 million houses selling very often, but when they're selling these mid-level luxury, $2 million to $5 million houses, I'll bet you they're moving up to, Miami or, Billionaires Row or, wherever that they're moving to in different parts of the country to higher priced homes.
I had a client like 2 years ago sell a house in Woodinville, and it was like a split level 80s house. Look up Austin Robertson on realtor.com or Zillow, you'll find it. They sold it. They moved to a town outside of Kansas City, engineer for Microsoft, right? So there's operations out there in Lenexa and whatnot. The house they bought literally looks like a damn mansion. Like there's like a dude, it has a lazy river, and they spent $800,000. It's a lazy river.
Dang.
6 bedrooms, like on a golf course, like.
Yeah. Well, in Missouri, that's luxury real estate, right? So, that's what the different markets really dictate. I mean, we were talking about this earlier today, in the same conversation, luxury from Pierce County to King County, there's a wide gap in price range in that. Right. From state to state, in the Midwest to the West or East Coast, even bigger swings. Like, how much would that house be here in Washington, in Pierce County, or even King County?
No, 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 4, 5. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do you know any houses that have lazy river? Like, I haven't even seen a damn lazy river in the past 2 years.
No, can't say I have either. Not here in Washington.
So listen, if you want to build a house, we would love to encourage you, as we work with your builder, to install a lazy river. That's where we're going to go with that. All right. So, like if you're watching this right now, you're looking at moving to the area, and this is your zone. Fine homes, luxury homes are what you want, what your family's used to. What are some of like the top neighborhoods that you would recommend people look? And I mean, obviously, if you reach out to us, which our information is coming along the bottom, like we'll get a search set up for you. We'll help you figure out the perfect neighborhood. But let's say you're just scouring the old Zillows and Trulias and realtor.com while they sell your information off to every broke realtor on the planet. What neighborhoods would you be looking at for homes?
Personally, myself, and I've lived in Washington my whole life. Let's just talk about Pierce County. Okay, right? That's our primary zone. Best areas, best neighborhoods, most expensive luxury homes, or even if you can kind of get on the fringe of some of these areas, you're doing very well. I would say Gig Harbor is one. Kopechek Ridge and the Horseshoe Bay area of Gig Harbor, very, very nice area, very high values in homes over there. You're right on the water. You've got some low bank stuff. Some of those areas even have some really, really deep waters, as far as getting boats over into there for the dock. Fox Island, which is just kind of south of the Gig Harbor area in Pierce County. That area, you got a lot, because it's an island, obviously, you got a lot of waterfront homes around it, and some of the southern and kind of, eastern facing homes have amazing views over their water of Mount Rainier. And then some of the interior island, it's very rural, but large lots, very wooded, very large estate homes kind of over in that area. So that's another one. The Stadium District in kind of downtown Tacoma, which has a lot of history, 10 Things I Hate About You. The film was filmed there at the school. Hey, shout out to elder millennials on that one. You're going to remember that movie. So that's a really, really cool area of Tacoma. Wallachette Bay is another one, which is kind of out on the peninsula, kind of over the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Other areas there, Old Tacoma, which was really a lot of history there, really where the founders of the city of Tacoma really lived. You got a lot of historical mansions in that area, a lot of the the bigger, more stately homes, kind of in Old Town Tacoma. You're close to Ruston. That's a really, really nice area of Tacoma. And then Chambers Bay, you've got the golf course right down there off of Chambers Bay area of Tacoma in Pierce County. You're overlooking the water. They had you got the bridge going right over the water right there. So it's really, those are some of the top luxury markets in Pierce County, if that's what you're considering. And again, like I said, if you can get on the fringe of some of those areas, because maybe, those luxury prices are a little out of your reach, those are going to be the best things to look at.
Well, there's, interesting, like Old Tacoma, for example. It's interesting because I feel like out here in the Tacoma area, like we don't have a Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. So like you could have a stretch of these enormous luxury properties and then find like a old 3-bedroom, 2-bath, like 2 blocks down the street.
Yep.
So it's a little more integrated than I think most areas are in just the way these homes are built. And obviously you've got the Cascades on one side and the water on the other. So, there's not more land to build these massive communities or rows and rows of luxury properties. So they're just kind of fit in there, which is a little bit of a different vibe, I think, for a lot of people. But I think if you're a luxury buyer here, you'll really enjoy, really any of those communities. So those are definitely some big ones. Let's look at the biggest home sales last quarter, just for fun. I think this is really interesting because people are always like, people love expensive houses. So
let's look at the most biggest and beautiful ones that have sold for the most money, right? Like let's sit here and daydream a little bit.
Yes, or just feel bad about yourself. So Miami, Florida, out in Indian Creek Village, had one that sold as top one for $79 million. New York City, $75 million. New York City, $65.6 million. Aspen, Colorado, $60 million. New York again, 47. Aspen again, 42.3. So New York City and Aspen, Colorado were killing it. San Francisco, 40 million. Miami coming in again at 35, and then LA at 34. Interesting only to see 2 West Coasts really kind of break that top 10.
Yeah, San Fran and LA coming in representing the West Coast.
Right. Now, what's interesting is there is some information on what these really look like, and here's the so we went over the top sales, and then this is luxury housing markets by Metro data. So you have your median price, you have your median sell price, active listings, new listings, homes sold year over year, and days on market. And I didn't see Tacoma on there. They only went with like the really big ones.
Yeah.
But Seattle was on here. So, your average is right here. So you're looking at, $2.618 million for what they consider a luxury listing here in Seattle. Price change of 0.01. So like really, not, well, hold on, is that what that one is? Median sale price basically didn't change. Now, median, Chris, tell everybody the difference between median and average, because I think that's a piece people miss.
Yeah, so median is what's the middle number. Okay, so if we're talking 0 to 100, median is 50. Okay, now if you're talking average, okay, you're going to average how many those sold, and at your average number of what's sold may come in at 55 or 60. It's usually pretty close to the median number, but no, median is what is smack dab in the middle, no matter how many above that or how many below that.
Yeah, that's That's dead on. It's kind of weird. Like it's the median use versus the average, I think is crazy. Like I don't know why we don't use the average, but I guess I don't get to put the data together. Maybe one day if I want to make my own table, they'll let me.
Well, usually the tables will have average numbers, and median. But yeah, median's one that in the real estate industry we just use a lot. People want to know what the middle ground is.
Well, look at this. Your new listings are up 11.7% here in Seattle.
Yep, for luxury. So it's tracking what the article talking about. Yeah.
A little bit different than the local, but not too bad. And then homes sold year over year. This is the crazy part: is homes are selling too. Look, it's an 8.8% increase from last year here in Seattle. St. Louis right underneath this is 5.8. San Jose 3.7. San Francisco is up there at 15. So we're seeing that. But here's the crazy thing: 21 days on market. That's
quick. At $2.5 million, it's selling in 3 weeks. That's insane.
Yeah, that is a competitive market. First, like that is wild. Yep. Like that's something that's pretty dang impressive.
Well, I mean, when you consider what's a buyer's market and what's a seller's market, a seller's market is anything 5 months or more worth of inventory. So when we're talking months of inventory, that means if nothing else was listed for sale and we had to sell through everything that we have on the market right now, how long would it take to sell through everything we have? A balanced market is kind of that 4 to 5 months worth of inventory. Anything more than that is a buyer's market. Anything less than that is a seller's market. It's still a massive red hot seller's market for luxury listings right now. If they're selling in 21 days, that's less than 1 month.
Absolutely. Let's wrap it up. Let's take a look at the highest price home to sell here recently. I think that would be kind of a fun way to wrap it up. So if you're not watching the YouTube, if you're listening to this on a podcast, like I'm sorry you're missing it. The pictures anyways, but unfortunately the priciest home was sold off market anyways. It was sold unlisted. So there's like one photo of the front of it, and that's basically it. So Chris, tell us a little bit about, this was sold in Medina, Bellevue School District. Tell me a little bit about this area if you're not from here.
Yeah, so Medina is, so what you got Seattle, you got Lake Washington, and then you've got Bellevue. In the middle of Lake Washington, you've got Mercer Island. Well, Medina is through the city of Bellevue and on the waterfront side between the island and Seattle. Well, you're up north there, kind of south of 520. So really where you're at right there, that is where Bill Gates lives. That's where Jeff Bezos lived for a little while. That's where Paul Allen had his house. So that is literally the most expensive neighborhood in the entire state and can be some of the most expensive real estate in the entire country. So where the founders of some of the largest tech companies to ever be founded live and still live to this day, where Bill Gates lives.
Here's the crazy thing is, like, this is a 13,590 square foot house, which that I thought was pretty wild. But, just being like the bro that I am, how about the 3,000 square foot garage?
Yep, that's my style right there. 3,000 square foot garage. Oh man, I could put so many toys in that thing.
Right. Here's the craziest thing. If you look at some of like the national trends of like, properties are sold for, I don't know, $200 to $350 a square foot. This property sold for $2,862 per square foot.
That's insane. Those are ridiculous numbers.
Here's the other thing that just rocked my world. Okay. Talk about appreciate. We're talking earlier about the market, about how luxury real estate moves faster. and it's a solid investment. In 2016, this property sold. Okay. Now, Chris is not like, just so you guys know, like Chris is not like dug through this information. So I'm actually just putting him on the spot here, and it's super unfair. But knowing that it just sold for 38 million,
Okay.
what do you think it sold for in 2016?
Ooh. 2016, obviously pre-pandemic. We were still kind of coming out of some of the run up after the Great Recession. It was only about 6 years prior to that. We were still coming out of that, even in 3-4 years prior to that. I'm going to take a stab, and I'd say 15 million.
Ooh, close. Just, well, yeah. I mean, it's in the 15 millions, but
Okay.
it's basically just under 16 million.
Oh man, dude, I'd call it. Hey, Price is Right, man. I didn't go over. That's pretty freaking close. If I got within $1 million of what the price was, I'd say that's pretty good.
So can you imagine though, like you bought a house for 16 million and you sold it for 38. Like that is a crazy increase in price.
Yeah. That is, I mean, more than double, obviously, just doing basic math. But in less than 10 years, that's a huge increase. Now, look, I'm sure that the owner of that house put a lot of money into it, made some massive improvements, some millions of dollars into some of the renovations of that property in order for it to justify a sales price of $38 million. But yeah, that's a huge increase. And honestly, not out of the norm of what we saw with just regular non-luxury real estate, and how prices have really doubled or more over that same time span, which really just speaks to how well of an investment real estate is.
Dude, yeah, I saw a chart. I think it was by Keeping Current Matters. Shout out to those guys. They were showing appreciation from different states over the last 30 years. And as an investor, this is something that I'm really big on. Like, I don't buy anything and intend to sell it in a week. Like, it's not how I am. Like, my dad taught me buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. Yep. And so I really liked seeing these numbers. What was crazy, in the last 30 years, homes in our area have appreciated on average 400%.
Yep. Absolutely.
That is a better than 10% return. Like most of the time your 401k is not going to get that even. So, imagine 30 years ago, you bought yourself some luxury property out here, and now look at the return. And that's what people say. They say the entry price for luxury real estate on the West Coast is too high. But at the same time, if you have the money and you want to live here, like that kind of a return on your investment is well worth putting the money into.
Absolutely. Yep.
Only downside is on like that house in particular, bro. Last year's tax assessment, their taxes were $203,000.
Yep. That's a lot of money to break out once a year, a couple $100,000 just for taxes.
Right.
But I mean, hey, right, you got $38 million house. I mean, you're probably good for it, right?
I hope. Maybe you don't want to be house poor with a $38 million house.
No. And that, I mean, honestly, in a lot of the real estate in some of those price ranges, it does transact off market. We just don't see a lot of it, in some of those price ranges. Not everything gets listed on the market because it's a lot of who somebody that wants to buy something in that area. And if you do, well, then, hey, I know a person that wants to sell. I know a person that wants to buy. Let's put a transaction together. And then you just see it on the MLS listed like that as an unlisted property with the sold data. So, if you guys are thinking about that or thinking about buying that kind of real estate, it's about, getting connected with people that know people in the area. So give us a call. We've got a lot of connections of people that own those types of properties. And hey, maybe we can find an off-market deal for you where you're not having to compete with other buyers in that luxury market. And having to get it bought within 21 days. I mean, if it's selling in 21 days, you probably got a few people looking at that thing, and it could potentially get bid up a little bit. So give us a call. Let us help you find that deal, maybe off market.
Absolutely. So just to recap, guys, we are seeing a huge increase in the average value of luxury properties. They're skyrocketing almost 9% year over year. This has also been the actual majority of the new listings to hit the market. So if you are not looking to buy as an affluent buyer, you know, if you've got a family and you're looking to buy in a nice little subdivision or something, we want to make sure that you're equipped and understand what's going on with the actual real estate market, where that inventory is coming from, so you don't get tripped up here in 3 months and wonder why the hell prices have shot up maybe another 5%. So with that said, appreciate you guys joining Chris and I today on the Titus Robertson Report. Dun-dun-dun-dun. And we'll see you guys next Thursday. If you're listening on Spotify, please leave us a nice little review. And if you're on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Have a good week, you guys. We'll see you on the next one.